Howdy ho, good neighbors. What's going on? It's Phil Russert, Philbo, publishing, distribution, yada, yada, yada. You know the deal. Happy Monday. Hope everybody's having a good start to the week, especially if you're on the East Coast. We got slammed with snow, but there's no better night than a snow-driven night to sit home and hang out and see a really cool interview with a legend in the industry. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So I hope you all come out, come sit down. You can, in the live chat, you can participate, talk to Chuck personally. And, you know, I will mitigate and we will talk. But anyway, I've been a big comic fan for a very, very long time, as you could tell by the white on my face and head. You know, I'm 53 since 9 years old. And one of my favorite writers of all time in comics is Chuck Dixon. I've had the great fortune of meeting Chuck Dixon. I wouldn't say we're good friends, but at least when I say hello, he knows who the hell I am. So having said that, Chuck is a really down-to-earth guy. Despite his accomplishments in the industry, I really appreciate how he's always there to impart some wisdom and advice of his long, extensive career. I mean, this is a man that transcended comics. Just recently had a movie out with Jason Statham based on his book, which we'll talk about. And for him to take the time with guys like me, I always appreciate. We all know him most famously for the breaking of the bat, you know, a Nightfall and things like that, co-creating Bane with Graham Nolan, and obviously Robin with Tim Drake and Punisher and a lot of other things. But he's also done a lot of great independent stuff that maybe you're just not as aware of that we're going to get into tonight, like Seven Deadly Sinners, which is live now, as well as other things he's done. So without further ado, comic legend, writer extraordinaire, transcends into movies. He's the Mount Rushmore of writers for me. Chuck Dixon.
Geeks and geekettes.
Hey,
hello.
How are you? How's everything?
Good. Doing good.
So as you can tell by my intro, I'm a kind of a fan. But I message you and annoy you from time to time. I do apologize if I message you too much, but
not a problem.
I've come to you with, you know, writing advice and stuff. I read Hunter Ninja Bear, and I was telling you how it's so impressive that you're able to write in the dialect of the time. And, you know, obviously a lot of people, I think, have a misconception that writing is just, okay, I just sit down and make up a story and I go. There's a lot of research involved. Most writers are usually some sort of historian, and I get the sense from you that you are, because you're really knowledgeable about many historical times in history. So, I mean, how does that play a role into your writing as far as the research and development of these stories and the dialects of the time and understanding even just the time period itself, like the thoughts of the time frame?
Well, I mean, to me, nothing's more annoying than reading a historical drama where everybody acts like they're in 2026, you know,
right?
And they have these attitudes. You've got to write set in the time period, and apparently that offends a lot of people. But as far as the dialects go, you got to stick to the lexicon of the time. You can't be using words that are anachronistic to the time period. But beyond that, it's pretty loosey-goosey. I mean, I've read stuff from the time period, you know, that I'm writing in, and I just try to give everybody their own voice. And the thing about dialects and the thing about the way people used to talk, I mean, we are all kind of homogenizing because of, you know, TV, radio, all the rest of it. We're all exposed to the way each other talk, and we're losing dialect. Well, we've lost regional accents to a large degree. But back in the day, if you lived in this part of town, you talk different than the people who live in the other part of town,
right?
You know, or somebody 20 miles away. You use different words, and I rely on that because there's no such thing as an exact dialect from the past. It's whatever you can make up. And I take comfort in the fact that, you know, Shakespeare made up 1,500 words. He didn't have a word for what he wanted to say, so he made up something that sounded right. And I just kind of fly that way when I'm writing dialect in the past.
That's pretty cool. But, you know, that's a good point too, that, you know, you really don't think about is there is no universal for a time period. It depends regionally. It could be as, you know, regionally as just your neighborhood. So
yeah. I mean, yeah. I watched a show. It was on a couple of years ago, Mayor of Easton, and it was set in where I grew up. And whoever wrote it lived there. And man, they got the subtleties of the dialogue and the dialect and the accents absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I mean, that's tough to do.
Yeah, I mean, giving a distinct voice is difficult. Never mind, just like you said, dialect. I'm mostly writing in the modern times because I know my shortcomings as a newer writer at this point. I'm not there yet. I don't want to push it, but even just like you said today, some people using contractions differently, or especially with our lazy language these days. OMG, but
Yeah.
It's funny because I saw a review on the latest Star Trek show, and they said one of the biggest issues with it is that for something that's supposed to be centuries in the future, they're talking like millennials would talk right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it takes you out of it because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. So absolutely.
Yeah, and that's something to ponder. I never really thought about that. You said something in the future, and you've got to give it a voice entirely of its own. I think that's why so often in Star Trek in particular, they'll reference works from the past. They'll reference literature from the past,
Right.
And that's like the only, because they can't make topical references, obviously. I hope to God, centuries from now, they're not talking about what's on TV right now.
Yeah.
So,
well, they will be if it's satirical.
yeah. I mean, but it's I mean, Wrath of Khan. They make a lot of references to Tale of Two Cities, and there's
Right.
constant references to Shakespeare throughout Star Trek, and that kind of keeps it tied to our culture. But in the future, but you're right. If they start talking like this, you're just gonna throw you right off.
That brings me to the next question. As far as like today's entertainment, whether it's comic books, writing, movies, I feel it's got too much of a nihilistic edge. Like we've gotten away from heroes that are true, genuine heroes, and we're blurring the lines too much. I mean, what are your thoughts on the hero versus the villain, the hero's journey, how kind of blurred it's been, and how it seems like an anti-hero establishment for the last over a decade at this point?
Well, there's nothing wrong with anti-heroes. I like Clint Eastwood. He's usually played an anti-hero. Toshiro Mifune often played an anti-hero. I mean, I like those kind of stories. The problem now is that everything is, it's all about irony, and it's all about tongue in cheek and poking fun at the genres you're supposed to be presenting. I'm all about earnestness. If you're going to do a superhero story or a pirate story or a Western or a romance, you got to make the audience believe in it, and you've got to be earnest, and you've got to believe in it yourself. I mean, there were no. You see a movie like Gladiator; they weren't poking fun at the gladiatorial games in the Coliseum. It was all very serious, high stakes stuff.
Right.
But too often in superhero movies, I see them pause the action for a cheap joke, and it takes you right out of it, and it diminishes the heroes and the villains at the same time, because it's like, well, why am I even watching this? It's just nonsense.
And what's worse is the humor is very, very juvenile. Like it's not even at an adult level. I mean, I know that these movies are also for children, but it's like, who's spending the money here? And you're dumbing down what the message to the audience is so dumbed down. It's like insulting sometimes. It's so ridiculous.
Well, they substitute comedy for humor, which is always a mistake in a dramatic movie. I mean, humor grows out of a character. It grows out of, I mean, some of the funniest lines in cinema history don't read funny on paper, but when you see them in the movie, they're hysterically funny. The comedy lines are written to be funny, and we're seeing way too much of that, and way too much like slapstick where there should be more serious violence.
I agree. Jin says, hello, how goes it, Phil and Chuck? And Victor Medina, who's really a phenomenal artist. He does it all, coloring everything. Says, hello, Mr. Dixon, huge fan.
Thank you.
Lee Reese says, hey, guys, just tuning in and already captivated by the conversation. It's good to know. Well, it's because of Chuck. It's not because of me, because nobody gives a damn what I have to say.
No, come on.
Yeah, I agree with you about the humor, but I do also think we've gotten away from the definition of hero, I think, a lot, because we're so busy trying to be sympathetic to the villain's cause that, I mean, don't get me wrong, a complex villain like Magneto, it's good to see like his side of things, and even Thanos in the MCU movies he was bad, but you understood to a degree. I think we've taken it too far though, where Superman's always got to be the evil version, or Wonder Woman, or Captain America. It's like some heroes need to be left alone for us to aspire to. And once we lose that aspiration and we bring them down to our level, we're just settling for being assholes. I mean, we have to hang on to that in some elements of entertainment. I mean, do you agree with that? Disagree with that?
I agree. The hero should be the hero. He should, once upon a time, the hero of the movie showed up, and we learned from what he did and how he reacted to things, who he was. Too often now you see a movie and he's the hero, but he's got some tragic, traumatic past that's always kind of crippling him emotionally. It's like he needs to grow as a human being. And it's like, I don't want that. I mean, when John Wayne rode on the scene in the first scene in the movie, I didn't know where he'd been. I didn't need to know any of that. What he did next told me all I needed to know about him. And I'm all for villains that you have a little bit of sympathy for, because it makes them three-dimensional, but they're still villains. They still have to be stopped. And what they're doing is wrong. And they don't, and you can do villains where they don't see what they're doing is wrong, and they're the worst.
Right.
Drax in Moonraker thought he was saving the planet, but this guy's got to die.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I want my heroes to be heroes. And the thing is, there are heroes in real life, friends. There are people that are superheroes. I mean, I wrote a series of Medal of Honor books about Medal of Honor winners in the U.S. Army, and these guys were superheroes. I mean, you read these books and you're like, how could that even happen? How could this guy even do this? And so, there are heroes, real heroes among us, and, policemen, firemen, people that risk their lives every day for us. And I think that we need that. We need to see that. We need to aspire to that. And if you tear it down and make them, weak, or personality problems or whatever, and like I said, I'm all for the anti-hero, but I want to see an bold upright hero sometime.
Yeah, let's mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
Couple of people. First, Todd Rayner said, "Hey, Phil and Chuck, big fan. I know Todd, but I don't have time right now. It's about Chuck, not me." Oh, look who's in the house. One of my favorite people in all of comics. He's a good man. He's been good to me. I appreciate him. Larry Stroman.
Oh, Larry!
A couple of stories I did. If you guys don't know Larry is honestly, when I was down and out, he was there to try to help me out when I almost died from COVID. He was there. So Larry's a good man.
Larry's the best. Larry. Hello, Larry. Good to hear from.
I love his style. The fact that he has a style that no one else has. Like when you see Larry's work, it's Larry. That's it.
No one else.
That's something to respect. So
yeah. Very cool.
Raphael, I recently wrote a piece about the villain, what makes them the villain, and talked a little about the pure hero. And that's fine, because even if you go from the villain's perspective, you're delineating a hero and a villain, which I think they're too busy making the villain sympathetic, whether it's the Wicked Witch of the West, or it's, they just keep, or they made Cruella de Vil a sympathetic figure, and she wanted to kill puppies.
Right. To wear them.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't even a highfalutin reason for doing it.
Right.
It's a fashion statement. She was pure evil. Why do we want to see that? And the box office showed nobody wanted to see it. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Raphael, now I'm about to write a piece on the pure hero, and you're right, people are too easy to write them, but I think the pure hero is harder to write. I agree, and I think a pure hero is harder to write because these days people find it corny and boring. And I disagree. I mean, I wouldn't want, like you said, not every story, but I disagree. I think there are so many stories that could be told about the corny Superman that would make him interesting, but they always think they have to deconstruct in some way or tear him down or make him our level, and it's disgusting.
There's so much nuance to Superman, to the whole concept. I mean, you could explore it forever. He's not just a big blue Boy Scout.
Right.
This guy he's the last of his kind. He's alone. He's God's lonely man, and he's looking to connect to humanity. He wants to earn a place in humanity, and also on the flip side, he has these awesome powers, and everybody's looking to him for help. And it's like, that's a strain on a guy. There's just so much to Superman, and they, anybody who doesn't understand that, it's like I had a discussion with someone recently about Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, he's such a dull character. No, Bruce Wayne is not. Bruce Wayne is a fascinating character because he's a part of Batman and not a part of Batman. And there's so much there. It's such a complex relationship between, this guy's two sides. I mean, there's great depths to these characters. And if you think that you need to tear them apart or give them a problem or show a flaw or some other thing to make them more interesting, well, you're just being lazy.
I also think with Superman, they always go nature versus nurture too much. For example, they always allude to the fact that the reason why he's a good guy is only because of Jonathan and Martha Kent's raising.
Yeah.
And I never liked that as a scapegoat. I like part of it. It should be nature that was nurtured, not the nurture is the reason. You know what I mean? Like maybe he was already a good person and they just brought it even more out in him and helped him, as opposed to just, if he went to Russia, he would automatically be bad. Or, I mean, not that that was an interesting story, but it just seems like they never approached the fact that maybe this guy just downright in himself had this moral code, this sense of, altruism that was just nurtured and loved and brought out even more, as opposed to, well, if he didn't have his parents, would he be Brightburn, So.
Yeah, it's, because, if you have kids, that they're born with an awful lot of their personality.
Yes.
You really don't have anything to do with it. That's why, everyone knows siblings that couldn't be more
opposite.
More opposite. My two boys are completely different from each other. Completely.
My girls too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cleaver is a great artist. He works with me on a book. He says, "Hello for Philbo, Mr. Dixon. I'm a fan of your work, Mr. Dixon."
Thank you.
And Victor said, in her defense, the dogs talked. Scary. About Cruella.
Well, Son of Sam had that problem too.
Yeah, really. It's funny. I lived in Glen Oaks, Queens when Son of Sam was around, and he was in the area. So we used to have curfews, lights out curfews. They had to get us in.
Yeah, I remember going up to meet with editors during that period at children's book companies when I was writing children's books, and all of the women in the offices, because children's book companies are full of women, they'd all cut their hair short because of David Berkowitz.
Wow. Because
he was killing girls with long hair.
Yeah. Well, his dog was telling him to, so.
Yeah.
Gotta listen when a dog talks.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to rehash the same questions you've heard asked a million times, and we all know like your major accomplishments. What I'd like to focus on today, before we get to the new campaign, is there's a lot you've done outside the realm of Marvel and DC that maybe a lot of your fans are not aware of, prose books, etc., that I'd like to talk a little bit about, because you just had a movie recently on one of your books. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was kind of exciting. They adapted the first book in the Levon Cade series. It's a series of 12 books, possibly 13 if I can ever get the 13th one together. Early on, Sylvester Stallone showed interest in it, and writing a screenplay, possibly directing, and then eventually it got around to being a vehicle for Jason Statham. And it did okay at the box office. We were number one. As someone pointed out, we beat the Snow White movie in the opening weekend. And it did really well on streaming, really went big on streaming. So, I'm happy about it. I got a movie made.
How are those royalties?
Well, Hollywood royalties are, yet to be seen. It's like a percentage of net receipts, and they're still counting the ticket.
Right.
So yeah, you don't hold out for that.
But
we're going to make a sequel, and then it all starts all over again. So,
and that's what I was going to ask you. Are there any talks to adapt any more of your novels that you've done?
Well, yeah, I've optioned a couple of things recently, both comics and novels. So there's a lot in play, but cool. But they're gonna, it's typical. They're going to talk and talk and talk for a long time before anything comes together.
Well, that's a bucket list. I mean, I know that just got to feel amazing though, that when you see your name on that big screen and people are watching this and it's based on everything you've created. So,
it was oddly nerve-wracking.
Really?
to see my name on a big screen. It was a little bit of a freak out. I did not anticipate that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, my heart started racing. I'm like, what is this? What has taken hold of me? So
humility, which is good. That's a good thing.
I guess, yeah. So
that's good, because some people, they all of a sudden they'd be walking with a different swag.
No,
like, look at this guy.
No, not me. I didn't reinvent the wheel or anything,
But very cool. And then of course you've hooked up with the Rippaverse and you've done titles there, and obviously, prior to this, what's in the works for you in the comic world on the independent scene before we get to Seven Deadly Sinners?
Well, I got a graphic novel coming out from Archaven soon called Black Warrant. The art is all done on it. It's basically it's like a dangerous version of the Punisher. I don't know. It's going to be controversial. It's kind of like what Mike Barron did on the title, whose name is escaping me right now. His vigilante story, and then I'm also doing a Levon Kay graphic novel. It'll be a graphic novel adaptation of the first novel.
Oh, cool!
And they're talking to me about a sequel to Hunter Ninja Bear. I've already done some writing on that, and probably got a bunch of other stuff going. And I got a bunch of other creator-owned stuff going that it's too early to talk about. But
how are you enjoying life after the big two, where you have the freedom to do what you want? You're still in demand. You're steering the ship yourself, and you just get to really get these ideas out of your head. I mean, how are you enjoying this?
It's great to wake up in the morning and you don't need anybody's permission to write. There's no gatekeeper. There's no, I just write what I want to write. And even at Rippaverse, which, technically is a gatekeeper, I have a great degree of freedom. I pitch stuff to them. They always say yes. And, and even on the stuff like Alpha Core, which is theirs, it's a hands-off policy. As long as I don't mess things up, they're very happy with what I'm doing. So again, I write what I want to write. Very
cool. Charles said, "Hey, Phil and Chuck, Private American is what you were talking about."
I knew it had an American title, Private American. That was Mike stepping out there into the controversy.
Iron Ghost is my favorite story in collaboration that Mr. Dixon has done.
Yeah, we're in talks about that, with doing that as something outside of comics.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hey, Chuck Dixon, any Westerns or war books?
I have kind of an unusual Western coming out. I think Graham's agreed to publish it through Compass Comics.
Oh, cool.
It's called Buttermilk. And then also through Compass Comics, we're going to represent Storming Paradise, the miniseries that Butch Geis and I did about the invasion of Japan, what might have happened in 1945 if the atomic bombs did not work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Graham's going to be reprinting that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Dominic, who is a talented artist, if you could give 3 tips on the best way to pitch comic to a TV or movie studio, what would they be? Todd McFarlane recently said you should hit 50 issues first before pitching. Do you agree?
No. You can have 5 pages of art and start pitching. You got a good concept. You don't need to wait. I mean, I heard from a director last week, and he's like, you'd know his name, and you definitely would know his movies. And we had dealt together back when I was at CrossGen. We spent a lot of time talking about projects and things. And he reached out to me he vaguely remembered something that I had worked on or mentioned years before. And he was interested in it. And I said, well, I'm actually completing the graphic novel. I can send you pages, and I can send you the script for the first book. And so you don't need 50 issues. Todd didn't wait for 50 issues.
I know. I was about to say, Spawn wasn't at 50 issues.
No, if you can catch fire with some, awesome images, because they're always looking at comic work. they're always looking at comic work because it's all so much of their production work is done that they don't have to think about.
Raphael's off to do his show, The Written Writ. Go check it out. And he said, Chuck, keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what about 3 tips to give when you're pitching a comic or TV movie to a TV or movie station?
Well, you want to have that high concept, you want to have that line, it's Die Hard meets, Sweet 16, whatever. My joke is
that sounds interesting.
my joke is always it's Die Hard meets Die Hard 2, but but and you want to. They love high concepts and cool titles, because I mean, like I was saying, the director that reached out for me, I said, this concept, it's not like this amazing thing I came up with, and he goes, no, he says, but the concept is good and the title is great, so. Both of them together make it easy to get it greenlit, because you're talking to producers and they have the attention span of fleas, and but if you can grab them with a catchy little thing.
Where do you even find these people?
Well, you hope they find you. I mean,
right.
Stallone reached out to me when he read an Expendables comic that I wrote, and then we just sort of like talking to each other, and it just built from there. But but when you find them, bomb them with material. I send out so much IP, it's crazy. I'm always sending out books. You just, hey, I'm going to send 10 copies to this guy, and maybe if they're sitting on the desk in the reception area, somebody will pick it up and go for it. But like I said, I got a bunch of stuff. I'm spinning a bunch of plates. We'll see if anything happens with any of them.
Mark said, anything new on Evangeline?
Now, the rights to that are so tied up.
Yeah.
Because when First Comics went under, I always thought the guys running First Comics were like the movie producers, where they sold like 300% of the company to investors.
Right.
And then when the dust settled, Evangeline and a lot of those other properties wound up belonging to a whole bunch of lawyers.
Yeah, that sucks.
So there's been like movie talk. I remember once they wanted it for, remember Vanity? They wanted her to star in it, but the rights were so tied up and everybody had their hand out for money. So it's never got done.
God, I forgot about her. That was the 80s. Right?
Yeah.
80s?
Yeah. There's been a bunch of names thrown at me for Evangelina. Every time like a new, rising it girl comes up, I hear from somebody, hey, we're thinking of having her as Evangelina. It's like, good luck. Everybody who has they once asked Matt Groening why it took so long to make a Simpsons movie. He said, because there's so many people that have their hand out.
Yeah.
You got to pay me first.
Well, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I had started my own distribution company because I felt that the middlemen have grifted too much and taken too much of the pie, and the creators are dying. Yeah. They're struggling with their really tight profit margins while the middleman's making his money, and it's like, wait, but I created this. I'm the one. I'm the brainchild. How am I not the one making the money? And I think it's hurt the industry a lot. These middlemen have come in, they grift, they pick the bones off the carcass, they move to the next one, and
they also pick winners and losers, which is
right. The gatekeeping of it, exactly, and it just kills creativity and fresh new ideas. And the Western market is not about fresh new ideas, because that means risk. Right. Everybody thinks that the race swapping and everything is because of a woke agenda. I think it's more laziness, and it's more saving money, because to invest in a new black character and invest all that time to try to build a fan base is exhausting your wallet and their time. But if they could just take the mythos of Superman, make a black Superman, you've got all those people on board already. And I think that's more of what it's about. And it's lazy. It's killing the industry with all of this lack of wanting to take any bit of risk. I mean, even just a small risk.
Well, I would argue, because back before woke and back before diverse, we CrossGen, we were seriously going to make a Way of the Rat movie, and number one, everyone said put a white guy in it. The reverse of what's going on now. So we put a white guy in a comic so that he would be in the movie, and then my argument against that was, well, why can't we have an all Asian cast? Well, it won't sell in the West. I said Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon made 200 million
Right.
at the American box office with subtitles. And they said that was a fluke. And then a couple of years later, Mel Gibson makes Apocalypto.
Right.
And it makes a fortune. So you can make these movies, but you actually have to work at it.
Yeah, they don't want to take any risks. And I think that's one of the main reasons manga is kicking our ass, because they take risks. They'll take a book about a chef and turn it into this successful story. And because they just want to tell stories, you know, it's corporate is just too controlling at this point.
Well,
So many of Chuck's stories over the years. Thanks for all those great comics.
It was my pleasure. Trust me, I love my work. So, yeah, I mean, if you read about how manga is done, I mean, it is largely directed by the readers.
Yes.
And they have polls, and you move up, and your series can get canceled if your numbers aren't good with the readers in the polling, and that's why they have to throw weird new stuff out there, because there's no other way to get attention. And the manga audience is receptive. They want new, different stuff. And the American audience probably does too, but they don't give it to them.
Well, the funny thing to me about American audiences is while they clamor for something new, there's a ton of new in comics all over the independent scene, and there's a stigma and they won't give it a shot. Now, don't get me wrong. Some indie books are just not there, whether it's because of the budget or their writing or whatever. I get that. Right. But there is a lot that is. No. And it's still struggling to get known. And I just feel like put your money where your mouth is. Don't tell me you're tired of the regurgitated crap in Marvel and DC, but then you won't go back a Kickstarter. You back one Kickstarter a month. Maybe you find, even if it's 1 out of 5 that you found that you're like, oh man, this is really good that I can look forward to. But the other stigma is, I think, with independents, without having direct market distribution, who knows when the next Kickstarter is coming out? And, we have short attention spans. I mean, even Image suffered with late books, and they were superstars. Now, imagine you're a Joe Schmo like me, and it's every 3 months before you put out a book. So it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's tough for everybody. I mean, you're a relative newcomer to this, but then you got people that are at the peak of their powers. These have been long-time professionals in the Kickstarter, in the crowdfunding realm. And, they face the same problem. You got to keep stuff coming out. Now you're on the wheel, and you got to keep turning that wheel. I agree. Mark, you did a Time War book for Apple Books. Any way that gets collected? Yeah, I could collect it. I mean, maybe I should do that. And I'm loving this. What's your take on Brandon Sanderson's recent Apple TV deal? Do you think it could work for comic property? His deal has been called unprecedented because he has full control. Okay, I want to need a little background on that. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that either. If he's given complete control, like a manga artist would be given complete control, that's cool. I know one would hope that pays off for him, because it'll pay off for the rest of us. Yeah, I think we just need some American outlet that literally wants to take even small risks at just something new and exciting, and trying to go out there. And who knows? I mean, I think there's a lot of changes in this industry going on and coming. And I think, it always has to get worse before it gets better. And I think Diamond showed how bad it can get. And I think things are going to start getting better again. I really do. People are starting to think outside the box. They're starting to try to reinvent the wheel. Some of that's going to fall by the wayside, but some of it's going to land. And I think it's going to be good. No, it's an exciting time, because people say, well, is this the end of comics, or comics going away? It's like, comics haven't been this vital in a long time. I mean, there's like everything's out there, and there's all these creative teams, both newbies and accomplished professionals, going at this and doing good stuff. I mean, you just got to look around, be open to something new. If it doesn't have the Avengers or Justice League in it. And I've been telling people, indie is not the same as it used to be, right? Because a lot of us are hiring people like you, and getting covers by major artists. And so we are getting the high talent, the resumes on like Hunter Ninja Bear. You have beautiful artwork with Chuck Dixon writing. I mean, there you go. It's something different. It was something new, and it was such a good story. And again, and then the illustrations just were beautiful as well. So visually it was stunning. And then of course it's your writing, and you really captured the time periods well. So that's what I'm telling people. Start paying attention to independents, because, Marvel and DC have left a lot of their people behind that really made them what they are. Because, you have these new editors that don't have that relationship with you, or whatever the case may be. Well, they're still in the comic world though, and now they're working with some of us that can afford them, and you're getting books. So go check it out.
You have two things going here. You've got all of these underemployed comic talents who want to still do comics, and then you have a great audience that the mainstream comics have left behind, who still want to read comics. So that's the success of crowdfunding. Those two groups get to meet and explore new characters and new situations.
I agree. Mark said, "Love the ice cream stick scene in front of the board." Without laughing at that.
That's all I ever got for that being in the movie. The Thomas Jane movie was hearing the audience finding that scene so funny.
So moving to the independent scene, you have something going on right now, which I'm going to play the trailer.
Okay.
And let me know if the sound should be on. If it's not, please tell me.
When the law leans hard on a brother of the road, 7 of the baddest of the bad join forces to bring $1 million in California gold to market. In the wildest, gnarliest, deadliest rally race ever. Over 100 pages of rubber burning, road raging, gear jamming, gas guzzling action. They're wild. They're free. They don't give a damn. A retro instant classic of a lifetime in the making. Coming at you from comic book outlaw Chuck Dixon and legendary cartoonist Bob C. Hardin. And the hard-riding gang at Riverside.
So did he reach out to you to start working with him, or did you reach out to him? You've been working with him for a little while now.
You mean Eric?
Yeah. Sorry, Eric July. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, they just announced this Rippascend thing, and I had been working on 7 Deadly Sinners for years with Bob. Bob's an instructor at the Kubert School, in addition to being an incredible cartoonist. And he and I have been working on this for years. I mean, long before Rippaverse existed, and he would work on it a little at a time as time allowed him, and then we couldn't find a publisher because a lot of publishers wouldn't touch it. We'd get placed, and then they'd read it and say, "We can't publish this." So talk about your anti-heroes. So finally, they read it at Rippa and said, "Yeah, we can do this," but we're got to warn people.
Very cool.
Because it's a 70s grindhouse movie on paper. It's a motorcycle gang outlaw biker story.
So you got your $10,000 goal, and you still have plenty of time left. It ends on March 27th.
Yeah.
I like to remind everybody though, just because you made goal doesn't mean they made money.
No.
There's shipping costs, there's production costs, there's time. Everybody's got their hand in the cookie jar, and when it's all said and done, you'd be surprised how little you walk away with, if anything. So don't let the hitting the goal fool you. The more money you invest in the economy of the independents, the better books you get, the faster they get made. Then next you'll get the sequel, you'll get the things you love. So please don't hold back, support. Get this thing double, triple, quadruple its goal. Chuck's got 20 illegitimate kids to feed, and and
the important thing to stress is the project is complete. You're not paying us to work on it. We finished it about 2 years ago.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
We're all set to go.
How many pages is this?
It's like 120 pages. And
Nice.
and there's lots of tchotchkes. There's 3 different versions of this awesome movie poster, and it's a full-size movie poster, 24 by 36, 1-sheet poster by Bob, and everything's designed by Bob. We got stickers, we got a beer koozie, we got T-shirts. So, Bob, in addition to being a cartoonist, is a heck of a designer as well. And we just had a lot of fun working on this. So the plot line is basically the Magnificent Seven or Seven Samurai with outlaw bikers.
Instead of a village, like you said, it's Grindhouse, so there's going to be a lot of. Yeah. What's that?
Partial, yeah. There's going to be partial nudity and lots of violence. So, Rippaverse, they said, well, this is rated R, and I said, I think of it more as 70s PG, if you know what I mean.
I was just having that conversation with somebody. What they considered PG back then, you saw boobies and women were naked in PG.
Yeah, I saw a PG movie, and you got to see all of Geneviève Bujold.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, Jaws was PG. I mean.
I know. Well, yeah, we didn't have PG-13 until what? The first one was with Wolverines.
Red Dawn.
Red Dawn was the first PG-13 movie.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. And I think it was like 1985, 84?
Yeah. Well, when I was the first ratings that we had, it was rated M. Man, that covered a lot of territory. You didn't know what you were going to see in an M movie. I mean, they were running M movies at Saturday matinees. I don't think they were looking at them first.
Funny.
I saw Bonnie and Clyde at a Saturday matinee.
Well, they weren't as regulated back then, and they left it to the parents to do what they got to do.
Right.
I remember I didn't see Exorcist until I was 24 because it was the taboo in my house. Because my parents were Irish Catholics in the 50s and 60s, so that was like horror for them. Today it's watered down for us, but just the concept alone was scary to them. And I was never allowed to go anywhere near that movie. And one day I was like 22, 24. I was like, I've never seen this movie. And I just put it on. And I was like, what was the big deal about? But again, it's relative to the time period and how you were brought up.
Yeah, I think that movie still affects. I stood in line in the freezing cold for 3 hours to see that movie. But yeah, I mean, but I remember it was condemned by the Catholic Church. And then 2 weeks later, when they realized church attendance was up because of that movie, they changed their minds. And they should have, because it's great. I mean, it's this one will get you into church.
It had a big cultural effect. It really did.
Oh man, you seen it with a live audience those first few weeks when you had no idea what you were going to see. Yeah.
Well, just the fact that you see a child using that language being possessed, it wasn't just visually disturbing, and the idea was disturbing, but here's a kid like cursing and saying the most vulgar things on TV on the movie screen.
Yeah, and also it's shot in kind of almost documentary style, which really brings it home. And then Friedkin cheated every way he could. There's all kinds of subliminals in that movie to freak you out, And then and I love the new version where they restored, my favorite scene in the movie. And but I don't know why they cut it. I guess for time. But
I didn't see the new one with the edited footage.
Yeah, well, they do the scene where she comes down the stairs backwards. Where they
is it like a spider crawl? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not my favorite scene. My favorite scene is when they're in the middle of it. They're almost getting ready to go back in the room for the last time, and Father Merrin and Father I can't remember his name. They're sitting on the steps. They're just sitting on the steps, exhausted. And the young priest says, "Well, why does the demon do this? Why did they do this?" And Father Merrin explains it's to make us feel more animal, to make us feel undeserving of God's love. And I'm like, why wasn't that in the original movie?
Wow, yeah, that's powerful.
It's a great scene. I love that movie. It's one of my top 10 favorites.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but someone in the chat was asking, are you available to write for Independence? I'll be hired to write for Independence. And if you are, how would they go about soliciting to you or speaking to you?
Well, they can reach me at Bruno Bookstore at gmail.com. That's where, I think we communicate. So Bruno, it's spelled the way it sounds, Bruno Bookstore at gmail.com. And reach out if it's something interesting. I want to make sure I bring something to the party. Obviously, if it's not interesting to me, I can't do my best work. So we'll see. The Finoglios reached out with Hunter Ninja Bear, and I'm like, this idea is so crazy. I want to write this.
I asked you, and you turned me down. Damn it!
Sorry, I can't say yes to everyone.
I'm just playing with you, but you were busy. I got you at a time where you actually, the movie was coming out. You were writing Rippaverse. I got you in a really tough time, so I understood. I'm just busting your chops. I mean, come on, we come from the generation where you bust the chops of the people you like, not the people you don't like.
That's exactly true. It's exactly true.
That's like the initiation, right? That's the He-Man Woman Haters Club. You bust each other's chops. So just like you said, Bruno Bookstore at Gmail, BRUNO Bookstore at Gmail, right?
Yep.
So with Seven Deadly Sinners, is this a one-off story, or do you have plans for continuing this in any way? Or
no, it's a one-off because I'm not spoiling anything. Some of the sinners don't make it to the end of the book.
Okay. it's like Sons of Anarchy with Magnificent Seven and
and a real 70s vibe. I mean, and Bob was the perfect person because he draws motorcycles and cars like nobody's business. And somebody on a podcast pointed out a Weber grill in the background. My dad had that grill. I mean, everything. Cool. Everything is in period, and but it's about tough men and women doing awful things. So talk about anti-heroes. I mean, there's the complete amorality all the way around in this story.
Well, we're in a world of the boys right now, so this will fit right in.
Yeah, I mean, you may not be rooting for what I saw as the good guys, and you might be rooting for the bad guys in this one.
That's cool. That's cool.
It's like I was saying that the end of Easy Rider, a lot of people were upset, and I was like, I kind of see the redneck side of this.
Len said Bob is a great artist and awesome guy.
Yeah, Bob's awesome. He's fantastic.
Cool. So Ripasend is basically another crowdfunding platform. It's just like any other one that you would go on. You sign up, create an account, and then you can go and you can pledge on whatever campaign is going on live. I have another friend, Eric Niedoltowski, who has a campaign on Ripasend right now. So there's a lot of really great books on there. And I will say this, just based on Chuck's book and my friend Eric's book, it's just storytelling for the sake of storytelling, to entertain you, pull you out of the real world for a little while. And I think that's another thing that's sorely lacking in entertainment is I know that comics have always reflected the time period. I mean, you had Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil with drugs in the 80s and stuff, but it was always the background basis of the story. It wasn't the foreground dictating, like used as a pulpit to, you must believe this way, sociopolitically, etc. And I think that's where people blur the lines and don't understand the difference, at least to me. And I always said, if you know what a writer thinks about any socio-political situation, they failed you, because that means they're using it as a pulpit to pitch to you and dictate to you.
Right.
And books like Chuck's, as you know, and my friend Eric's, they don't. It's, we've got this situation, whether it's the time period or whatever, you're going to have good guys, bad guys, anti-heroes, but it's just fun entertainment. It's just get away for a little while. We all get inundated 24/7 with news and propaganda and hyperbole and all this stuff. You could just disappear into a book for a little while. So go pick up Seven Deadly Sinners. It's already made. You'll get the book fairly quickly once it's all funded and taken care of, and then you could just delve into a story, man. And you never know, you may find that next story that you pass on to a friend and you're talking to your adult kids at this point about. And I saw your response to Todd McFarlane, which I shared. I had the same response. Obviously, I don't have your voice, so it didn't get as much attention. But it's like he totally missed the cue, in my opinion, because yes, covers cover will bring you in and interest you at first, but the writing keeps you. And the proof is in the pudding. When we talk about comics as 30, 40-year readers, we talk about the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah.
Now, I love John Byrne's art. He's one of my favorites. But we're not talking about the art. We're talking about what happened in the story. When you look at the success of the cartoon of X-Men 97, it's because they used some of Claremont's greatest stories.
Yeah.
So it's as much as it is illustration, it's visual, it's just as much literary. And that's why great comics are a blend of both together. It's a marriage. And this whole argument, I'm more important than you, to me is ego, and it's foolish. Your thoughts, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, you need both. I mean, it's the great art. You might enjoy it for a while, but if the story's not there, you're going to stop reading it. You'll buy it, not read it, and then eventually not buy it. We've all done that. You've got this to be read pile of comics, and you just simply never get around to it because the story didn't really engage you, even though the art's pretty. So you really need both. And it's like, I'm not arguing that the writing is more important. It's not more important. It's just equally as important.
I agree.
So, I mean, and people say, well, the words, and it's like, and some people have pointed out, well, there are comics that don't have any words. Well, yeah, well, they wrote silent movies too. They needed writers for them.
Right.
It's not just what you're reading. There's more to a comic.
There's art direction. There's scenery. There's background. There's panel description. Exactly.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why Todd keeps banging this drum. I mean, certainly he's been successful primarily on art alone because for the most part, the writing on his books is subpar. So
I think he's just shaking a tree to get attention. It's like these stars that come out, they say these things, they know are going to be controversial, but it's putting your name out. It's marketing. I
understand that. I mean, nothing against Todd. I mean, obviously he's a great marketer. Obviously he's been really successful, and that's great.
So, and I'll never be at his level, so I'm not knocking him. I just don't agree with what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, I more knock the people who just without thinking just come to his defense and take his position, and it's like, now listen to yourself.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Fans are fanatics, and that's you have this tribalism that's just so strong these days that you'll have two fans fighting because one likes an artist and one doesn't, and it's like, guys, stop. Enough. Just enjoy the medium, whoever you like.
Well, we've all grown up with artists that we really liked, and then you kind of, as you get older, you take a second look and go, yeah, I see some of the deficits here.
Right. Alex, great artist, says, hey, Philip and Chuck. Alex does a lot of great work. He did my horror books and some other stuff. Cool. Shane was asking, I don't know if you know, do you know if the Ripascend is only for U.S. publishers, or because he's in the UK? Do you know by any chance?
Well, they're starting a digital program, which turns the comics into global. It gives them a global reach. So there might be something to think about there. Because, I mean, postage is killing everybody.
I know.
On these projects. So, they've got a number of projects digital, and I certainly want them to take the 7 Deadly Sinners digital to get that global reach. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't let that stop me from submitting to them.
Cool. Rod says, hello, guys. Another talented artist. Why isn't that popping up? There we go.
Hey.
Mark asked, any crazy kaiju books on the way?
Joe Bennett and I really want to do something kaiju.
Dude, you do a kaiju book, I'm all over that.
Well, it wouldn't be a book. It would be a feature. Seriously, they want us to bring Zaylan back, our kind of cosmic character.
Yeah.
And I can 100% guarantee you that when he comes back, there's going to be some kaiju elements in part of it, because I really want to do something like that.
And David Donovan, who runs a great show here in Rockaway, if you ever come over to New York, Chuck, you should do the show. He says your Nightwing is one of his faves. Me too.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people, I don't know, they went away from your Nightwing too much. It just, I don't know. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, please, Chuck.
I can't answer because I don't look at any of it.
For me, the biggest crime is what they did to Bane. Bane, it wasn't the Venom that made him so formidable. He was as strategic as Batman. He was as intelligent as Batman. This is a man that studied him, got
Right.
his weaknesses. He didn't break his back because he was stronger. He broke his back because he out strategized him. He
Yeah.
was 2 steps ahead of him the whole damn series. And then boom, he took him out. That was the threat of Bane, and they turned him into this dumb brute that if you just cut the line of the Venom, he's now Batman could kick his ass, and it did not get the character at all.
No, he didn't understand the utter ruthlessness of this guy, and he's a real chess player. You know?
And that's the thing. You went into his background of his childhood and how it toughened him up and made him have to be smart and 3 steps ahead of everybody to survive.
Yeah.
And they totally just dropped the ball on that. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Well, again, you know, it's another character I don't think they fully understand.
No. Have a good night, Lee. Always appreciate the kind words. Kilius Eric, I can pick 4 or 5 artists that I loved on Spider-Man, but I definitely didn't stop reading it because the artist changed. Fair enough.
Yeah. There's titles I've read and I keep on reading, you know, and then you run into a patch where I don't really like this guy's artwork, but he's not going to be here forever.
Right. Right. And that's another thing. I think that Marvel and DC don't want you to fall in love with the artist. They want you to fall in love with the IP. So they get these artists that can't become rock stars. They get people from overseas, cheap page rates, and that can't do shows here that aren't going to become there's a few like George or Jorge Medina and stuff that have created names for themselves. But for the most part, they're going very low key on the art, in my opinion. In some cases, no disrespect because I can't draw, but some of the art is just not what you would expect from 2 big publishers. I don't know. I could go on a million reasons why I think the industry that could really help the industry, but every time I do that, my haters just troll me and give me shit. So, Chuck, I have a lot of haters, Chuck. You would think I was somebody important with how many people have invested hate in me. They created a YouTube channel about me.
They're all clicks, so the laughs on them. So.
Yeah, they created a YouTube channel about me. Is that crazy?
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I'm infamous.
Jeez, I didn't know I was. I didn't know I was talking to an influencer. So.
Yeah. But all right. So again, tell us a little more about 7 Deadly Sins. Why we want to buy the book. Why we want to pledge right now. Besides the fact that I'll find where they live and toilet paper their house.
Well, yeah, and we knew who we're talking about. It's like I said, it's like 7 Samurai, Magnificent 7, but it's like a 70s outlaw biker flick, and it's 7 badass outlaw bikers get together to help a buddy of theirs. He has a hippie commune up in Northern California, and he's growing marijuana by the ton, and he can't get it to market because all the sheriff's deputies in his county are corrupt as hell. And they all want a piece of the action, and so these bikers get together to get his dope to market, and it turns into the last half of the book. Almost the last half of the book is a continuous motorcycle race across open country that gets really crazy as only Bob C. Harden can draw it. He makes a car chase on paper exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah. A lot of fun to work on.
Packs, you got a cozy you got a lot of like swag. You got stickers, sticker sheets, T-shirts. You got the whole merch pack. And then you've got the want it all. So if you can't decide, it's real simple. Get it all, guys, right there.
Yeah, doesn't hurt. If you don't like the comic, just buy a T-shirt. T-shirts are cool. I love those T-shirts.
Hell yeah. So besides 7 Deadly Sinners, what's coming next after that?
We're going to do a solicit for a Something Big omnibus. We're going to do a crowdfund for that. It has a bunch of extras in it and variant covers and all the things that come along with that kind of project. I've got this new novel out, Guns of Mars.
Hang on, let me.
It's my version of Edgar Rice Burroughs. Nice story. It's been described as a spaghetti western on Mars, and that's kind of what I set out to write. So I guess I did it. That's out, audio, Kindle, hardback, and stuff coming up next. I mean, I'm always doing projects that I can't talk about. I know I got more Alpha Core and Horsemen coming
Cool.
from Ripa. And I mentioned Storming Paradise from Compass Comics. So
you one of the last times you were on my show, you had told a story about how you literally had like less than 24 hours to turn in a script. And it's funny, I write my scripts very quickly. Like the one that you read, I literally wrote in like 4 hours.
wow.
And that story stuck with me because it always impressed me that you could just put out a story like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the artist Sean Chen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean's a great guy, and he said to me he doesn't understand how I can write a script that quickly like that. And I told him about your story, and for me, I just approach it like I am just telling a story to my kids in a campfire at the very start, and then you go back and you professionalize it and you tweak it and you do what you have to do. But
right.
I mean, what is your process when you write your scripts? Like when you go, I mean, I know you do a lot of research on a lot of your things, but obviously you come up with an idea, and how does it go from the spark to the page?
Well, I come up with like the big scene, what I want to get to, like if I write a kaiju scene, well, I want to do this and I want it to be like that. Okay, now how do I get there? And what's the reason for it? And you got to make it make sense. And if I have the big scene, whether it's a comic book or a novel, then the next thing is the opening, and the opening is all important in any kind of story you write. And once I have the opening, and I got my big scene I'm working toward, I'm off to the races, and I'm just writing toward the big scene, and then coming up with stuff along the way, and then thinking all the time. Every scene has to accomplish at least 2 goals. Is this scene funny, but also character revealing? Is this scene full of action, but also building a feeling of dread at the same time? You want to keep that pot boiling. And largely it's because, I have a mortal fear of boring readers. So I don't want to bore anybody. So he's like, how can I keep this moving? So
Well, you haven't yet. When it comes to opening, at least in comic books, being as visual, do you feel it should start with an action scene, or do you think that really depends on what the book is about, etc.? Like some people think you have to start bombastic right away to catch the reader first.
Well, there's different kinds of bombastic. There's that great splash page John Byrne did in Fantastic Four. It's just this big close-up of Galactus, and he just says, "I'm dying." Okay, I gotta read this story. I gotta know what's going on.
Right.
But what you don't want to open up on, and I see way too many comics open up this way, and I've seen this for decades, is 2 people talking that I don't know who they are. I don't know what they're talking about, and mostly I don't care what they're talking about. And then it leads into 2 or 3 more pages of them talking before something happens. I mean, something has to be happening on that first page and second and third page, and it's got to draw even the most casual reader. I don't care if you're in the middle of a 6-issue arc of your story. Every chapter of that needs to engage from page 1, and so somebody could be coming in the middle of your story but find something there that brings them in. So you have to think about these things, and that's what I see. That's my biggest complaint about American comics, and this goes back, all the way. And I see it. I saw it way too much, and I still see it.
I'm big on cliffhangers. I like that last splash page that makes you go, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Or where is this going?
Yeah.
And not even so much as a hook to get you to read the next book, but I always found it intriguing. It really gets your adrenaline flowing, and it makes you feel like, okay, I read this for a reason. I didn't waste my time, because now it's like, oh wow, there's a payoff. Like, oh, this is, even if you don't have the answer right now, there's a payoff of knowing that, oh, this just elevated, this just went somewhere. What are your thoughts as far as an effective cliffhanger?
Well, yeah, you want that holy shit moment at the end, especially if you're working on a new series, you don't have 70 years of continuity. You can't just suddenly pull Dr. Doom out of the woodwork and stick him on the last page. So you really got to come up with a cliffhanger that makes sense and has real stakes for the characters and really deconstructs the plot line that's happened up until that point. And, so yeah, I mean, you got to have that cliffhanger. And that's what makes things work. And more I'm seeing in some of my favorite movies or TV series or whatever, they'll ramp things up. How's the hero going to get out of this? And if you ramp it up well enough, but you don't have a clever way out of it, that you have to use a Deus Ex Machina or the cavalry arrive or whatever, if you've ramped it up enough, the audience will forgive you for that. Because you ramp it up enough, you're like, oh my God, don't let this happen to Indiana Jones. Right. I want the two-gun kid to get out of this and save the girl. And as long as you've ramped it up enough and cranked it up enough, you can get away with murder. Hitchcock did it all the time. Got his characters in the corners and then got them out. In a convoluted way, but you forgave it because he got you so involved in the story. You really, really cared about the lead character.
Who are your biggest influences as far as in any medium of entertainment, as far as influenced your writing, whether the genres you write or your style of writing? It could be movies, it could be comics, it could be prose books, it could be anything. Who are your biggest influences?
Well, Archie Goodwin was always my biggest influence in comics because he wrote just enough for the pictures. He really wrote to a balance. So he let the artist tell the story. He never got in the way of that. And I learned a lot from that. His were like the first, because I didn't see EC comics and stuff like that when I was a kid. But when I saw him on the first like creepy and eerie comics, I'm like, whoa, this is the first writer I really noticed. And I got to go to Steve Ditko on Spider-Man, those first 40 or so issues, where he really layers an ensemble cast perfectly. It's just, wonderful grand opera stuff. And then from, other, I could be here all night listing the prose writers that have influenced me. Donald Westlake, James M. Cain, Patricia Highsmith. I mean, I could go on and on. Edgar Rice Burroughs is a huge influence.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that you would be the influence of someone else? That you would be those people who those people are to you, you'd be to someone else?
No, I never thought about that. Has that happened?
You know it has. I know you're humble, but you know it has. You've left a huge impact in the world. I have to give you credit for something. And I don't kiss anybody's ass. It's being sincere. That whole point of breaking the bat could have easily gone over as just a shitty gimmick for DC to get sales, like the Death of Superman pretty much wound up being, right? Mm-hmm. But because of you and Graham, it wasn't. It was a solid story. It was part of the folklore. It was the next evolution in his life, and then everything that happened in Night Quest after on his way back. And there's one scene that always sticks with me in Night Quest when Batman's coming back, or what the third one is. He's standing on a gargoyle, and he's scared shitless. He's afraid to jump.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so real. Like, who the hell? I don't care how confident you are. You're jumping off a freaking 20, 30-story building, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
But that moment grounded him so relatably to me that I never felt that connection to Batman before until that specific scene. And that's why I want to give you and Graham, of course, credit through his art and his creation. But you guys, you turned something that could have easily been a shit gimmick into a beloved story that people cherish. And part of that is because of Bane. It was a worthy adversary. He was a worthy villain. So I want to give you kudos for that, because I don't think people recognize that enough.
Well, I'm gonna stick up for Denny here, because Denny going into this said, we want a story. Now, he was under pressure to do something akin to Death of Superman, but he said, we're not doing a stunt. We're going to do, this has to be a real story, and it has to have, long lasting impact on the Batman character. And we're going to answer questions about Batman here, and we're going to establish things here for the first time, and we're going to come out of this the other end with a villain that will last. And that was his challenge to us. And he came up with the framework, and he hired Alan, he hired Doug, he hired me to write it, and we were all earnest, we were all into it, and we all recognized this is a golden opportunity as comic book writers to do something special. And all of the dramatic high points were there for us. We just had to get to them. And man, we were just itching to write this stuff, just itching to get at this stuff. I mean, we were so worked up after the first summit to get back home and get to work. And Denny kept it real all throughout, and we had lots of really deep discussions about what we were doing and where the characters were going and all the rest of it. But everybody knew their job, and everybody, stayed on target. And, so a lot of that was Denny. And of course, the other art teams saw as an opportunity. Graham and I were like, yeah, this is our time here.
And, you actually gave another part of the success of that story, I think, is you gave fan service without it feeling like fan service, because he faced all his villains. Like you got to see him going against all the villains. You want even Zaz and all of them. Like you got to. So. And that's the tricky line, giving that fan service. Like, I love Cobra Kai because they gave fan service without feeling like it was forced fan service, like Star Wars did with the sequels.
Right.
And when you can bring in an older generation who loved that Penguin, and the newer generation that's like, oh, who's this Bane guy? And you can meld them together like a Cobra Kai did. You just created an audience while cherishing your former audience or your current audience. And comics aren't doing that anymore. They're alienating the old audience to try to get a new audience that's not coming on board, or at least not enough. So you guys did this wonderful balance of bringing on new readers and bringing on new life while honoring and cherishing the longtime Batman fans. And I think that was a huge part of the success. I mean, was that something you had to really consider and think about when you were doing this, or you wrote what you wrote and it worked out?
No, we were fans ourselves. So there's an earnestness there. I remember when we were doing the Arkham Escape, and we will all we divided up the villains. I'm going to write this one, this one, this one, this one. And I said, I really want Scarecrow. And I said to Alan, I really want to write the ventriloquist. I want to write the ventriloquist so bad. Would you let me have the ventriloquist? And he said, go for it. And boy, did I have fun writing that character. And so, that's what we were doing. And we were able to explore all these different villains. And then when Azrael becomes Batman, we get to revisit all the villains again. And we all get to write that fantastic scene where whatever villain it is suddenly realizes this isn't the same guy.
Which makes it even more interesting again, because now the whole interaction is different and their reaction to it is different, because they're expecting Bruce Wayne and they're not getting Bruce Wayne.
But for each of us, it was like, how can I approach this in a different way than the other guy did it? And it was really, it's just a lot of fun. There was just a lot of energy there. And it comes off in the story. It comes off in the story.
And it sounds like no ego, and which is big. Like if you look at the greatest rock bands, there was no ego. Rush and all them, there was no ego. Everybody was just equally. We know our role. We know what we need to do. We know where we fit.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like Nightfall or even Nightwing or any other books you've written, was there ever a story that you wanted to tell that they wouldn't let you, that you regret not being able to tell in any of them?
Well, in Nightfall, there was a lot of discussion. I was always discussing about logistics, and I seemed to be the only one interested. Not Nightfall. It was after Cataclysm. I was always thinking of logistics, even in Nightfall. I mean, I had to find out, okay, if you broke your back, what would you need? What urgent care would you need within the first few hours after that injury? And so I went into all that in that one issue. And I made that the suspense element. Can we get a hold of this drug that he needs to be injected with now, in order to cut down the swelling so he doesn't become paralyzed. But later on, after Cataclysm, Wayne Manor is destroyed. And we go, it's rebuilt. And I said, and like all of a sudden it's just rebuilt. I said, well, let's think about this. There's a great story here. I said, you couldn't rebuild Wayne Manor on site, because they would find the cave.
Right.
I said, what if they rebuild it off-site on like a huge slab, concrete slab, and then one day they come to do the last finishing touches on it and it's gone. It's been moved in place overnight. And I said, and we just hint that Bruce called Clark and asked him for some help. And Superman moved Wayne Manor and put it down where it was supposed to be. And Denny was like, no, we're not doing that. They can't do that. And
did he say why, or he just didn't want Superman to bail him out kind of thing?
Yeah, he didn't like mixing the super. He wanted to keep Batman as separated from the rest of the DCU as he possibly could. And he says, I don't, we're not doing that. I'm like, man, it's a missed opportunity. It's a great scene. But, what are you going to do?
And that, it goes to show them, like you said earlier about Bruce being the human side of. I think a lot of people love Batman because he is a regular human fighting gods, and it makes people feel subconsciously that they can conquer, that they can achieve more, right? Because if this average guy can do that, maybe so can I, even if it's on a subconscious level. So, but I think the scenes between him and Clark are always reminding you how Clark would like to be more human, and he'd like to have be more than he is, because he has so many things he wants to accomplish. And that was a great dynamic of the two of them that played off of each other. There was a great respect of wanting to be more like I'm sure you and your wife, she has personality traits that you wish you were a little more like, and vice versa. I'm the loudmouth. My wife is the more reserved person. Sometimes I wish I had a little more of her reservation, and she wishes she was more outgoing like me. And that's where it blends well. And I think those two had that dynamic. So, scenes like that, I always think, did kind of add value to Bruce. Maybe not Batman, but Bruce. So
yeah. I don't know. One of my favorite scenes, Kelly Puckett wrote it. It was in a special where basically they showed Dick Grayson getting to hang out with Superman for the first time, and he comes back. He comes back to the Batcave completely starstruck, and all Bruce says is, "Remember, he's not human." I thought, whoa! I wish I'd thought of that. Yeah. It's a brilliant scene.
Now, I think with the Joker, I think the problem is people don't understand that character at all either. They think they've got to make him peeling off his face, or they don't understand what makes him so menacing and scary. And that's another character they don't know how to handle, and they've oversaturated. They've used way too much at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wrote the Joker in the second Robin miniseries because it was like demanded. That's fan service. The new Robin's got to meet the guy that killed the old Robin.
Right.
And I sort of lifted some plot lines from some classic, some tropes from some classic Batman stories that I love, and included them. And I was really just like avoiding writing the Joker himself. My only rule for the Joker was he actually has to be funny. So when he says something, when he makes a joke, it can't be just a joke. It has to be actually work to make you laugh. And that was my only thing. And then when I got doing more Batman work and there was no avoiding it, eventually I would have to write the Joker again. I remember talking to Scott Peterson, and it said, nobody wants to write a bad Joker story. I mean, you can write a bad Cluemaster story, nobody's going to remember it. You write a bad Joker story, that's going to stick to you like stink the rest of your career. And he said, well, the thing about the Joker is he reinvents himself every morning. And I said, that's it. That's the key. That's what I needed. That's the key. That's what I needed. So I really got into, and I know other writers have done this as well, Joker telling his origin. And of course it's different every time. And
it's funny because one of my favorite Joker scenes was actually written by Kevin Smith in a book called Cacophony. And the reason why I really liked it is because the Joker was on antipsychotic drugs, and he was actually lucid and he was sharp, and Batman was trying to actually connect with him, thinking that it was his insanity. And he was like, no, make no mistake. I may be lucid right now, but I fucking hate you. I hate you, and I enjoy making your life torment. And you're my yang to my yin. Yin. I genuinely, drugs or no drugs, I don't, I want you dead, or at least in pain. I just thought it was interesting. But if the fans didn't vote Jason Todd to get his head bashed in, and they offered you a new Jason Todd solo book. Have you ever thought of where you would take that character? Because he was so hated for being such a snot-nosed little shit.
Yeah, I don't like that character. I don't know what I would do with it. I mean, I kind of wrote my version of that when I created Tad Ryerstad in Nightwing. Somebody who just doesn't get it,
Right.
just does not, doesn't understand what they're trying to be. I didn't like Jason Todd, and Denny told me, he says sometimes a character gets away from you because remember they rebooted Jason Todd, and he was still unlikable.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so when it came to create Tim Drake, they very consciously created characters very different, and then I built upon that. He's never going to be arrogant. He's never going to be overconfident. He's going to understand I'm not a natural, and and I thought that made him more relatable. Because Dick Grayson's a hard act to follow.
Yep. Well, you succeeded because Tim Drake to some people is the best Robin. I mean, he's been solidified, despite all the changes they've made, but he's been solidified in comics. So
yeah,
I mean, kudos to you on that. Is there a character that you never got to write that you would have loved to, and like they had these grand ideas for that you think would have really, been like phenomenal and stuck with the fans for life?
Yeah, Graham Nolan and I, we have this fantasy where we get to do like a 2-year run on Fantastic Four. So
I would have loved that.
Yeah, we got our opening story is a killer. It's a really,
with your sense of logistics too. I think that would have been awesome. That would have been great. Oh my God, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
No pun intended. All right, everybody.
Actually, a play on words, not a pun.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, everybody, get the petition together. We want Chuck and Graham on.
See where that gets you.
I do want to ask you this, and I hope you don't mind. You said I could talk about anything. There is a false stigma on you that really aggravates the shit out of me. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
I know that politics and tribalism and all these things happen in comics. I'm not going to pretend I know you real well. It's not like we go out to dinner, but we've had conversations that lasted over an hour after our shows and stuff. And I've heard stories from you, and I've heard things, and I've heard from other people. I know, like Larry, I know a lot of people in the industry. You have this stigma for being this right-wing nut job that hates gay people, hates diversity, blah, blah, blah. And I'm really tired of it because I know that's not the case. I know that's not the case. And I know you voice a lot of frustrations with what you see going on in the industry that I share, a lot of people share, but you do it in a tasteful way. You're not trying to be a shock jock. You're not going out there and trying to stir trouble and get attention, but you just have an opinion like anybody else because you truly care about entertainment. You care about storytelling as an art form. And I get that about you. So I wanted to give you a platform, a moment to just tell everybody who has the misconception of who Chuck Dixon is. Who's Chuck Dixon? Who are you?
Well, I am a right-wing extremist. And it comes by honestly. I put out yard signs for Goldwater when I was 10 years old. So, I'm not a Johnny-come-lately to this. I don't speak conservatism as a second language. But what people don't, it's not that people don't understand me. They don't understand conservatism. They think that conservatism, you must be a racist. You must hate gay people. You must hate everybody's different than you. And it's like, no, I'm a conservative. I am for the individual. And whatever you want to do, let your freak flag fly, but, and deal with the consequences of whatever your actions are. But I want the best for everybody. When I see the thing is, right now, I'm not going to explain who I am. I'm certainly not going to apologize. And I'm not going to say, well, you have no right to believe I'm this for, this or that other reason in my personal life, because to hell with you. Okay. I've never done anything that's proven the accusations against me. It's never appeared in my work. And I can run down a list of things that I did before anybody else did that are now, the thing to do. It's never mattered to me who I worked with. It's never mattered to me about characters. And like you said before the show, but I got in trouble. My biggest objection was, instead of making this character who's never been gay, why not create a brand new gay character? We all know why they don't do that, because that's hard work. But to me, if you did it right, you might have a huge success on your hands. But I'm not going to explain who I am or all the rest of it. It's because even if I did, first of all, you're inviting them, you're showing them your throat.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to.
That's like apologizing when you get and they cancel you, even worse. I got you.
You can only get canceled by apologizing. If you just stand there and go, "Yeah, you called me a racist," I guess by your definition, I'm a racist. Well,
it's funny that you say that, because long story short, I don't know Ethan Van Sciver well, but I woke up one morning to hundreds of communications, because Ethan took it upon himself. He saw my book Tragedy. You read the first issue. He had the second issue, and he promoted the book. I didn't know he was doing it. I was grateful that he did it. I agree with some of Ethan's opinions about writing and stories, but maybe I wouldn't do the shock jock approach. But I have nothing against him. Just like if Eric Larson promoted my book, I'd be thankful to him as well. And he's very far left.
Right.
I don't care about the tribalism, but I had my conservative friends going, "I didn't know you were Comicsgate." I had my liberal friends cursing me, and I was like, "Guys, I don't even know what you're talking about."
Nobody knows what they're talking. I don't know what's Comicsgate. I always joke, hey, if there's Comicsgate, then I'm the Jesus of Comicsgate, because I was the first one to come into the light.
But then I found out what they were clamoring about, and I was like, they were looking to cancel me, and I'm a little nobody. So I just put out and I said, "Listen, here's the deal. I'm not going to apologize for being grateful that Ethan Van Sciver, a man with a name, promoted my book. It was very kind of him to take that time out.
Right.
But I don't do tribalism either. My tribalism is my family, and I just want to put out a good book that everybody likes. And I'm not apologizing for shit. I don't get fucking canceled. And guess what? It all went away. But if I had apologized and went on an apology tour, they would have eaten me alive."
Yep. And look at Comicsgate. I mean, I don't understand Comicsgate, because there's people that I work for, work with, like and admire, who hate each other.
I know.
I like everybody in Comicsgate. I have no problem with that. I guess I'm like the Ferris Bueller of Comicsgate. I get along with all of them, and it's like, why does this guy hate this other guy? So what did they do? I don't want to know. I don't want to. It's like after convention, and you're with the last holdovers at the hotel bar, and they're going into some crazy thing that happened at the convention. It's like, I don't want to know who's sleeping with you. I don't want to know any of it. I just want to move on. And Comicsgate, the same thing. I mean, I see the most vile things said by people that I admire about other people I admire.
I know. Well, sometimes I think it's just a marketing tool, right? I mean, fake outrage, sex, it all sells. Yeah. Controversy and sex will always sell, period.
Yeah. It's like, I find that, when I do my Ask Chuck Dixon, if I put something in there like, why Todd McFarlane is wrong, I get more hits.
It's a great show, by the way. I listen to it when I can while I'm in the car driving between patients and stuff, and just a lot of good stuff, and background stuff that I didn't know about, stories I heard, and your show is great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I owe it all to the people who ask the questions, because people say, "Well, you need to do a podcast." I'm like, well, what will I talk about? I really need somebody to ask me a question.
Well, it's funny because I had went into DM and asked you a question based when I read Hunter Ninja Bear about how do you know the language of the time? Right. Where do you find that and stuff? And you said, "Oh, coincidentally, I'm actually my newest," and it was just coincidence. You go, "My newest." What did you say? Actually, it's a great question. You put it on the show. I forget, but you wound up doing a show answering that question. So you guys should go check out his channel to get answers on that. Do you have any tips before we go today to aspiring writers that are trying, like schmucks like me? Like you've read 2 of my books. I'm not asking for you to talk about them here. This is about you. But what advice would you give to a guy like me, or guys that are in the chat that really just want to get their stories out there? They care about the medium. They care about storytelling. What advice would you give on the writing side, the marketing side, anything?
Well, as a professional, try to get some money up front. If someone approaches you and they say, well, I want to hire you to do this, do you have the money? And then second question, where did the money come from? Oh, my mom will write a check. No, I'm not doing that. And the other thing is just come up with, when you're first breaking in, come up with that high concept, come up with that battle pope, come up with that axe cop, come up with that crazy, ridiculous idea that'll stick in people's heads. I mean, your book, Tragedy, is like, it's got such a different look to it and everything else. It makes it memorable.
Thank you.
You're not going to forget that book when you see it. It's not going to blend in with every other superhero title. You're going to go, okay, this is that one. So you got to think in those terms in comics, because now later on you can do your subtle literary opus, but you can't start with that. You got to start with something crazy and nuts and in your face, and that's how that rolls. That's comics. They're grand opera.
And I am forever grateful for the forward you put in the trade. So thank you. You've been very kind to me, and I appreciate that. You really have. I know you got a lot.
Well, I mean, I'm not a quote whore, so if I didn't like it, I wouldn't have said anything.
But see, that's why I went to you, and I went to Peter David, and I went to Howard Mackey, because I know you guys will be honest. You'll say, I'm sorry, I can't, I don't want my name anywhere near this. I don't think it's any good. And I want that, because I can't be better if you're placating me. I don't want to be the guy in American Idol that sucks because my family couldn't tell me the truth,
Yeah, you don't want to be William Hung. Who becomes famous for being awful.
Really.
I mean, and the thing is, people say, can I send you something? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then they send it and it's horrible. And I feel so terrible about it. It's like,
Peter, rest his soul, he could be a curmudgeon. Like he could be.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So, you don't know which Peter you were getting. And when I went to him, he literally, Chuck, he threw the book at me. He goes, I read it. And I was like, uh-oh. Okay. And then he goes, it's better than most things on the rack right now. I really liked it. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I have nothing bad to say. He goes, I tried to find something, but I couldn't. So I go, Peter, do you have a fever? He goes, get out of here. Get away from me. But I mean, it means a lot to me, because you guys, again, you, Peter, Chris Claremont, and Wheezy. I love your writing. I love what you've done for various different reasons. You're the Mount Rushmore to me. And to be honest with you, I really think it's a big mistake by the big two to have turned their backs on a lot of the people that have made the industry what it is. I think they foolishly think that new audiences aren't going to go for you, which I think is bullshit. And X-Men 97 to me is proof of that, because everyone loved that cartoon, and they were all based on a few Scott Lobdell plot lines from the 90s, but most of the 80s stuff from Claremont. It just goes to show you that's the stuff that's timeless, and they need to honor you guys and get you back in the saddle with them. I think it's a big mistake. It's a lost opportunity.
Well, when people say old school, to me, that means well crafted. What does old school mean? Is that supposed to be an insult, that it's good?
Right.
What made it old school? Because I found it engaging and entertaining.
Well, the Bible's old school too, right? I mean, we just derive every story from the Bible. So, I mean, but yeah, you guys laid down the groundwork for so many characters. I mean, there is no Tim Drake without you. I mean, that series, and then you created characters like Spoiler, and there's just Bane. Even just your take on characters became like the mainstay of who we knew them to be, like Nightwing. I mean, obviously, you had Wolfman on Nightwing before that and other people, right. But your Nightwing separated him from Batman and Robin while still keeping them in that universe. And still, he was the prodigal son that had his issues with Bruce, but still loved him and resented him at the same time. But he was becoming his own man, doing his own thing, And he didn't need a team to lead to do that.
Right.
So I don't know. I wish they'd get their heads out of their asses. I really do.
It's not gonna. It's too late. I mean, that the day Denny retired, that was the beginning of the end. That was literally the end of an era. And who are they going to get? And And so many of the people that work on these things, they're not comic book lifers. You know what that is.
I know.
If I could get into comics full time, that's all I want to do the rest of my life. I never want to do anything else. And these people are like, oh, I'm going to go work for MTV someday, or I'm going to work for Vanity Fair someday.
That's another thing that hurts. There's no bullpen. I used to Howard Mackey would tell me the stories when you were sitting there in the bullpen joking around, acting like a bunch of clowns. You weren't getting paid a lot. You loved what you were doing. You're a bunch of kids. And then when you had oh my God, he just passed away. Famous editor, Secret Wars and everything.
Shooter.
Thank you, Jim Shooter. Yeah. He told me this story where they did a rise. They built a rise to put the desks on because Shooter would come in and he'd loom over you. And Howard told me how they purposely put the desks high so when he came in, he wasn't tall anymore. And, he's a goofy shit like that brought camaraderie, which brought the meetings of the minds like you had with Denny and them that gave us great stories. And I think that element is missing too, because they're not editors are schedule keepers at this point. That's mostly what they are.
Right.
And you're just getting emails. You don't even know the people you're talking to at this point.
No, and the bullpen was a madhouse. The bullpen was like a newsroom where the president just got assassinated every day. It was crazy when you have the energy and the nuttiness. I remember seeing editors coloring covers that had to go out that day, and they're coloring them. One starts at the top, the other one starts at the bottom.
Wow.
Because there was no time to wait for just one of them to do it. I mean, just nutty stuff would happen.
But that's born from passion, period. And that passion, I think, is just not there anymore with the new people. I don't.
No, it's not. They don't. It's just like movies. I mean, movies used to be made by people who love movies, and I mean the producers, the studio heads. They're not anymore. They're made by a guy who wants to make sure that when they produce the movie, they hire his catering service.
Right.
So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, I appreciate your contributions that continue to come into the comic world. Everybody, you need to pick up Seven Deadly Sinners. If you enjoy The Magnificent Seven, if you enjoy Sons of Anarchy, if you like biker gangs, if you like the 70s, if you like a Pale Rider, Jesus Christ, sorry. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. You'll enjoy this. It's a grindhouse, action, violence, sexuality. It's a lot of fun, and no one's safe, which always makes for an interesting story.
Bob and I go to Tarantino Town, and we don't come back.
Sweet. So if you go to Ripasend, go check it out. If you're intimidated by crowdfunding for whatever reason, and you're like, I don't know this campaign, I don't know how to do it, they're really not that hard to figure out. I'm sure if you reach out to anyone, they can show you how to get on there. But it makes the big difference, not just to Chuck and them, but to the comic world, because we need fresh stories, fresh ideas. We need the people that built this industry to thrive and continue to be the influence on us, not these grifters that we keep listening to that have driven it into the ground over the last 30 years.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
And I mean that sincerely. So anyway, before we go, Chuck, you get the last word, and then I'll let everybody go.
I just appreciate being on. Appreciate all of you watching. Appreciate you, especially if you'll go buy Seven Deadly Sinners. You'll have my undying devotion. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I'm just glad to be here and glad people want to hear what I have to say and continue to read my work.
Very cool. Is the chat working? Yeah. Why? I don't know. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway. Yes, it's working. We see you. Victor said, thank you for the great show, Phil and Chuck. Chuck, it's always a pleasure. I'm glad you came back on. You can come on to promote anytime you want, anything you have. Just say, hey, Phil, you got a slot. You don't even have to ask.
Well, maybe you'll see me again before this campaign ends.
Yeah, at any time. I love talk. So just talking to you is fun. Never mind, appreciating what you've done for me personally. So
I always have a good time. Always have a good time here, Phil. You know that.
Well, I didn't send the money yet, so yeah. My PayPal's down. So, but
you gotta fix that.
Yeah.
And it's US dollars. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I did the Brazilian exchange by accident. The fees and the.
I got excited when I saw the number, but
yeah. was like, what do you mean it's in reels? Chuck, it's always great having you on, man. I wish you the best of success always. Thank you for what you do for us little guys and what you've done in the mainstream. Keep going. Keep supporting everybody. And 7 Deadly Sinners live right now. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Guys, that's the great Chuck Dixon. I just want to let you know real quick, Philbo distribution is going strong. We are worldwide at this point. We are in Sweden and Australia and UK and Germany and Italy and Canada and Mexico and Australia, I think I said, and we're across the country. And we're truly trying to get small publishers out across the world into the direct market. If you're a publisher and you're interested, please go through the proper channels, www.philbodistribution.com, fill out the submission form, and we will respond right away. And then we will explain our terms and services to you, and we'll go through that. Retailers, we have almost 600 signed up. We're just below 600 by 3. So if you guys would please give us a shot, give it a try. There are plenty of books that you will enjoy. And lastly, we have our free poll, which is our version of Free Comic Book Day. The FOC is the 1st of March for those free books to be in time for the May 2nd day of celebration. Also, Philbo Publishing. Please go check us out. We got a lot of great stuff. Papa 2 is coming out. I didn't want to ask him to say anything on the show because I feel bad. It's really about him than me. But Chuck read Papa issue 1, and he liked it. He thought the dialogue was really authentic and original. He didn't see the ending coming. I got him. And he really liked it. So, and you heard that he liked tragedy and he thought it was interesting. So if you don't believe me, believe the great Chuck Dixon, which is an honor to me that he would say that. So please go check out and sign up for Papa 2. If you sign up, I will give you the PDF to issue 1 for free so you could read it and see. And then if you like it, you want to pledge on the campaign when it comes time, go for it. If you don't pledge, it's okay. No worries. So that's about it. Appreciate you guys coming out. I'm glad some of you got to talk to Chuck directly. Again, he really is a good guy, and I think he's very misunderstood by some. And that's why I just wanted to bring that up. I'm not into the political divide. I'm not right or left. I'm just about common sense, freedom, and personal accountability, and wherever that lands is where I land. But Chuck is a good guy, and he gets a lot of flack that is unfair. Anyway, so thanks to him for coming out. Thanks to you all for coming out. Philbo Publishing, Philbo Distribution. I'm hoping soon to have some huge announcements that I am biting my tongue I want to talk about. Anyway, Philbo, this is the year of Philbo. Believe that. All right, I'll leave you with what I always leave you with. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.